Welcome back, folks. This is the Business Briefing. Absolutely excited to have you with us as we rejoin. We've got a special guest now, Zach Giglio, CEO of GCM. Zach, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Janet, good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Zach, could you tell us a little bit about GCM and the work you do?
Yeah, sure. So we help organizations, businesses around the country take off-the-shelf AI. So things like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, things that people don't know, don't need to know how to code, and put it into the work that they're already doing. And so we do that. We do workshops and trainings.
All right. So talk to us about some of the trends we're seeing in how companies are implementing AI. You wanted to talk to us a little bit about how AI projects fail that you've seen in your experience and what companies can do to fix it. What are those best practices you've learned?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think it's a really important one. So what we see is where companies are failing is mostly because they're treating an AI rollout in their organization as if it's a tech installation as opposed to a change management program. And what I mean by that is, a lot of companies are taking these tools, maybe they're going and investing in custom built solutions, which are very expensive and can be very clunky. And they're just deploying them saying, here, team, we should start using this because everybody else is, or so they think, rather than considering the human being before they bring in the AI. And what I mean by that is, for a lot of people, this is a very scary thing. People are unsure about AI. They're unsure about what it means for their role, for their job. And even when a leader comes in and says we're using AI, what we find is that they're kind of falling short of communicating a vision, of saying, this is why we're using AI. These are the areas in our business where we're going to start using AI and to drive some real business goals. So I think the first thing really is that leadership and considering the human, and really try to allay some of those fears that people have. And I would say the other thing is that people, quite honestly, overcomplicate it. So we saw an MIT report come out recently that showed that companies have invested something like $30 to $40 billion and have only reported a 5% success rate in AI pilots. But what's funny about that is the MIT report measured mostly companies using custom-built solutions, but also noted in the report that most people actually use off-the-shelf solutions. And so what that means to us anyway, and what we're seeing out in the field, is that companies aren't really meeting people where they already are on their AI journey, which is also a really important component of the change management program.
It's an MIT study showing that companies in the United States spent $30 to $40 billion on AI, but only 5% of them saw measurable improvements. Did that surprise you?
So when I read the headline, I find it very surprising because we see really great results when we're working with organizations. I mean, we're talking within a week, people are saving about 20 to 30% of time on important tasks every day or every week. They're accomplishing about 30% more in a day or in a week. And so we're seeing, great success around the country. And so when I saw the headline, it was really confusing to me. As I read in the report, it started to make a lot of sense. And basically what they found was that most of these companies that they talked to were investing in these custom-built solutions. So that means they're having some developer, some company come in, they're spending all this money, and they're building, what can often be, not always, but what can often be these very rigid solutions that are hard to use. But even if they were a great solution, what the report noted, if you scroll down into it, which started to make sense to me, was that employees or team members felt that there really was a lack of training and understanding and connecting it to their role on a meaningful level. So it was just like, hey, we bought this platform and you have to start using it. And so if you aren't connecting those dots in the organization of this is why we're using it and how we're using it and really walking people through it, then you're going to have a lot of challenges. And then those numbers do make sense to me.
Joe, tell us about, the change management program approach of the rollout. How do you guide companies through that change management? What are some of the major building blocks that you institute when you want to guide companies through the implementation of AI as a change management program?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the first thing that we do is we'll run essentially an audit of workflows. And depending on the company size, so if they're rather large, we really don't want to start with more than 12 or let's say 20 people. what we want to do is to get some early wins with some internal champions. And those people are going to be the ones who really drive meaningful adoption throughout the organization. So we'll bring those people in the beginning. We'll audit their workflows. And what I mean by that is we'll just ask them simple questions to figure out where are they spending a lot of their time, and also what are the tasks that make up their day that are tied to their business's results and really the results of what they need to be accomplishing as an individual. Once we do that, we identify pilot use cases as a group. So we'll come in with our expertise, but really the organization is the one who understands, what is very important to their business. But where we push them on identifying these pilot use cases, and here's where I think the MIT study, really showed where some of these issues are, is it's really important about how you are choosing a pilot use case. And what we really push people to do is to pick a use case that is simple. So that doesn't mean that it's not, challenging to do. It just means that as far as the workflow goes, it's a 1 or 2 or 3 step process. So simple. The second thing is it has to be meaningful. So also where we see companies fail is they're just trying to save time for the sake of saving time. But I think we all know that if we save time in one area, there's just more things we need to do. So it isn't like we're going home and golfing more or something like that. So companies will just try to save time for the sake of it rather than saving time in areas that will help you drive more meaningful results elsewhere in the business. So the use case has to be simple, meaningful, and the final thing is it has to be part of the work that is already happening. So if you think about a change management program, one of the big things you want to do along the process is reduce friction. So as much as you can throughout this process, you want to reduce friction, doing things like, trying to have people not change how they work because they think it's better for AI, and making AI fit into the way people are already working as much as possible. Another thing we could do, though, is not to go in and say, here's a new technology, here's a new way of working, let's apply it in new areas of our jobs that we're not doing now. That just increases friction. But the other thing, if we're running pilot use cases with off-the-shelf AI in areas where we're already doing our work, then it's much easier for us to be able to measure the impact. And measuring that impact then allows us to judge, was this a good use of our time and effort? And if so, where are other areas in the business that we can then roll out more pilot use cases to? So I think that's really important. But again, the other thing is not changing how people work. So we've worked with construction companies, and there'll be project managers who go from site to site, taking down notes on a legal pad. And they feel naturally that is not something that will work with AI. But rather than having them change, having to do voice dictation or typing up notes to work with AI, we just brought in a workflow that allows them to simply take a picture of their handwritten notes and run it through a series of prompts to help them with their follow-up and itemization and finding the urgent items that need to be addressed within the project. So I think those components, if companies focus on those, they will usually have more buy-in. More buy-in equals early wins equals confidence, and building a foundation for longer-term growth and success.
Zach, what else do you think companies need to know as they think about their AI implementation?
So one of the big things that people seem to get really confused about is how many options there are out there. So we all know kind of the foundational models that have gotten a lot of prominence, so ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Copilot. But a lot of people get too worried about all these new tools, and they think that there's some magical moment in the future that some tool is going to come in and do a lot of this work for them. And what we really try to communicate is you can keep this extremely simple, use off-the-shelf, very cheap, easy-to-use tools, and get some very significant business impacts. And so I highly encourage people not to worry about all these tools, not to worry about custom-built solutions, no matter how big you are or how big your budget is, but to get people started in simple, easy-to-use off-the-shelf models like a ChatGPT or a Copilot, and start building confidence from there. And then if you find that you're really getting frustrated because you're not having the capabilities in your AI model that you think you need, which I have not encountered yet, then I think it makes sense to start exploring custom solutions.
Next, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can we follow you in all of your work?
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. So company is GCM, so our website is whoitisgcm.com. I also do a lot of speaking. I'll be actually somewhere on the road for the next 10 weeks. So maybe if people are in the area where I'll be, they can attend one of the events that I'm doing. And my personal website is zachgiglio.ai, ZACHGIGLIO.ai.
And that's Zach Giglio, CEO of GCM.